Bet horse racing on DRF Bets. We'll match your first deposit of $200. Get free expert picks and past performances, plus weekly cash back. All from Daily Racing Form, the most trusted name in horse racing.
Dan Illman, Mike Beer, race number 10 at Keeneland on Super Saturday, the Grade 1 Coolmore Turf Mile. $1 million is the purse. Let's take a look at this field. It is an overflow field. You've got 12 in the body of the race, 13 through 16 on the also eligible list. And not only is it a very competitive field of talented horses, it should be a great betting race with a good amount of speed entered as well.
Yeah, I agree with all that stuff, Dan. I think there are ways to make cases for just about everybody in this field. It's just that kind of a race, and you're 100% right about the pace. I mean, I always get concerned when I see races that look like they're going to set up with a lot of speed, because I look at races in New York all the time and it seems like nobody goes. I don't see how that's possible in here, Dan. There has to be some hitting.
Let's throw up the Timeform US Pace Projector. Perfect segue, my friend. We know that Too Smooth Like Straight has speed. He shows it in every one of his races. He always shows up with a good effort. He just doesn't win very often. Some Like It Hot Brown is also extremely quick from the stalls. And then you've got horses that have stalking speed and tactical speed. It should be a solid pace up front, to be sure. Emirati, the 11, has a lot of speed, at least in longer distance races. He's far back on your pace projector.
Yeah, he showed speed, sort of surprising speed last time over a pretty boggy turf course at Saratoga. He's going to be off it this time. But boy, Some Like It Hot Brown has to go. Smooth Like Straight always goes. Classic Causeway is cutting back out of some longer races, but it feels like his only chance to be effective in here is to go forward from the rail. I think this pace has to develop.
How good is this race? The one Classic Causeway is a millionaire. He's a graded stakes winner this year, twice on dirt. He's a grade 1 stakes winner against fellow 3-year-olds on turf, and he's 20-1 on the morning line. He ran third last time out in the Jockey Club Derby. They tried to utilize similar tactics as the two races prior. The Belmont Derby, where he had a nice, easy lead. Classic Causeway got the lead in the Jockey Club Derby. Two things worked against him. I think 1.5 miles a little bit far, and B, that Nation's Pride's pretty good.
Yeah, he's bumped into a pretty good horse there, Nation's Pride, in his last two. He's got plenty of speed. He made the lead in all 3 of his turf races. He managed to hang on in one of those. He couldn't hold on in the other 2. They've all been going longer distances than this. So they're going to try to cut him back to 1 mile, Dan, and see if that, maybe is a little bit more in his wheelhouse. I think this is just a really, really tough spot for him, especially with some quality pace to his outside. But this horse is taking the turf just fine.
Smooth Like Straight is consistent. 9 consecutive triple-digit Beyer speed figures. The problem is he's only won 1 of those races. He banks a lot of money. He's got good tactical speed. The problem is he usually finds one a little bit better. I think he'll appreciate cutting back in distance. I think 1.125 miles in the Arlington Million last time out is a little bit far for him. If they go fast early, he's going to fight. He's going to show up. The likelihood that one beats him, it's out there.
Yeah, it's always out there. But even with all that being said, Dan, he's a horse that you just have to take very, very seriously in here, because as often as he comes up short at the end, he always turns up on race day and runs his race, and it's always a fast one, and he will be involved in the stretch, and we'll see if he can hold on this time.
He's a horse you have to respect. He shows up each and every time. He's a true throwback. Order of Australia is a global world traveler for Aidan O'Brien, and he likes the Keeneland turf course. Remember him? He won the Breeders' Cup Mile in 2020 at 73-1. And he's coming into this race in pretty good form. Runner-up in a Group 1 last time out at Longchamp.
Yeah, he did get up for second in that race. I thought he overall had a pretty good trip in that race, Dan. And just, there was never a point in that Prix Moulin that it looked like he was going to win to me. And he did wind up getting second, 2 starts back, another major Group 1 race there. He just wasn't good enough in that race and wound up finishing 4th. This horse is okay. There's obviously a way to make a case for him. I'm not betting him this time.
One of the long shots in here is the number 4, Grace Fable, a horse that has a versatile running style. If the pace is slow, he can be close. If the pace is fast, as is expected on Saturday, he can come from off the pace, as he did 2 starts back when winning a stake at Ellis Park. Last time out at Kentucky Downs, again, sort of a testing European-style turf course. He didn't break very well that day, and he got wired. There are some excuses.
Yeah, some excuses for the last one. I guess all in all, he ran fine in there. 3 starts back, he was also in against a couple of these. He was part of the pace. He was nowhere at the end. It just feels like a really, really tall order for this horse. But he's got, several races in his past that would at least give him a chance to get a piece of this thing.
Really get a Chad Brown horse falling under the radar from a wagering standpoint in major turf races like this. But the 5 Masons 12-1 on the morning line with Flavien Prat aboard. 4 starts for Chad in North America. He's hit the board in all of them. He's a graded stakes winner at the distance and just missed in the Maker's Mark Mile over this course. His last race was the 4-star Dave. Did you think that pace was fast? Timeform US had that those fractions color-coded red. We did see the 1-2 finishers come from off of it, especially Casa Creed. Do you think maybe he was a little bit compromised by the flow that day? He did run a fine third.
Yeah, I didn't think he was compromised necessarily, but certainly that pace was solid that day, and he was closer to it than the 1-2 finishers. I didn't see a big excuse for him, Dan. You're right that it's rare to see, a Chad Brown horse in a Grade 1 turf race that's going to go overlooked, especially when they've run nothing but triple-digit buyers basically since he's gotten here. But I think this horse is in pretty tough in this race.
I'm a huge fan of Ivar, and talk about triple-digit buyers. He's popped 7 of them since coming in from Argentina. The Brazilian-bred Ivar won this race at a big price in 2020, and he got a nice prep in the Woodbine Mile last time out. It was only his 2nd start of the year. We watched Ivar's run in the Woodbine Mile, and he was far behind early. He eventually makes his way to the outside. He's going to get a little bit of a bump. He's going to be impeded just a little bit. It really isn't going to make a difference. The winner of the race, Modern Games, is one of the best turf milers in the world. Ivar ran just fine to be 2nd.
Yeah, he did run fine in this race. You're right. That brief little contact there, maybe an upper stretch, had nothing to do with the outcome. The horse that bothered him a little bit was the winner, who was just sort of coming out underneath him there and then just rolled away. This horse was pretty game to get 2nd. He could obviously win here. Any pace that develops really helps his cause.
And trainer Paulo Lobo is going to utilize the same blinkers off move that resulted in the win in this race in 2020 at a big price. Maybe it wakes Ivar up again, and he should get some pace. Santin is the 7, a very likable horse, multiple Grade 1 stakes winner this year. Now, those Grade 1 races came going 9 furlongs at Churchill Downs, a turf course that's had more than its share of problems in 2022. But in the Arlington Million, he stayed right up close to Smooth Like Straight. He skipped right by him. It never looked like he was losing. And it looks like this is a horse who's coming right into his own. I think he can sit a fine trip in the 2nd flight just off the pace. My concern is this could be a completely different turf course than the one he ran on at Churchill.
Yeah, I agree with that. I took that into consideration as well, because it does feel like, the 2 big wins at Churchill, I guess you have to at least reckon with that before you move forward. Personally, Dan, I think this horse has run well in all of his races. And more than anything else, I just think he's a horse who's better going shorter. They tried to get the mile and a quarter with him. It didn't really work out. He's good at a 1 1/8. I don't even mind them cutting him back for this race. I think shorter is better for this horse.
If you think some of these older horses are good and they're solid and they're consistent, but they lack a little bit of razzle dazzle, maybe the 3-year-old number 8 Annapolis has the upside that you crave. Trained by Todd Pletcher, he's coming off a win in the Saranac that basically is a hard race to analyze. It was nothing more than a paid workout. Let's watch Annapolis win that race, a 4-horse field against fellow 3-year-olds, where he went to the front and went the half at almost 49-4. He wins like he's supposed to win. The race 2 back, the Saratoga Derby, I think was just a distance that was a little bit far for him. I think this horse is a miler, 1/16 type, and he's run nothing but good races. Even the Penn Mile race, a race where he was beaten by 1,000,000-to-1 shot, that was run over bottomless, boggy ground.
Yeah, and off of a long layoff, too. Yeah, I agree with you. This horse has run really well in all of his races. There's tons of upside here. To me, he keeps getting better every time Pletcher sends him out there. Is this by far the toughest test of his career? It absolutely is. But I think he's very interested in here at anything like the morning line odds, and you might even do better than that.
Belmont's just done a sensational job with the 9 Casa Creed. A lot of people forget that early in his career, he was a real solid middle distance type that could pick off a Grade 2 or a Grade 3 here or there. Mott cut him back in distance. He relished becoming a late running sprinter, getting some pace. Now it looks like he's so good, he can get the mile against good competition. Let's watch Casa Creed's win in the 4-star Dave. 2nd Grade 1 win this year. He sat back and last off a solid pace. He swings to the outside. He runs right by the favorite, the talented mare Regal Glory, and he's on his way. And he's going to get a setup once again.
Yeah, he is. That's Mason also, by the way, with the pink cap there, the 4 who's right in the mix down to deep stretch and getting outfinished at the end. Listen, I don't know. I don't have any knocks on this horse, Dan. Yeah, is he a little bit better sprinting? He probably is. He showed that he could get the mile last time, though, coming last to first. This race is way tougher. They're both grade 1s. This is way tougher than the 4-star Dave that he just won. But I have no knocks on this horse. He can win this race.
You got to respect horses like the 10, Some Like It, Hot Brown, New York bred, 10-time winner, Millionaire. And he just shows up each and every time. He ran his race in this start, the grade 3 million, most recently at Kentucky Downs. He went to the lead as his tactic, and he just keeps on going over this testing turf course. He's going to show speed. I'm not sure he's a true grade 1 horse, although he ran a fine third in this race last year.
Yeah, he did. He's a very underrated horse. He's dead game to get the job done here in this rich race at Kentucky Downs. The loss at Saratoga back in early August, he just was unrateable early in there. And obviously that's not something he can afford in this race. But when he gets a comfortable trip, he can go with these horses.
The 11 Emirati was a bit of a disappointment when he first came over here from Europe for Chad Brown. They gave him the winner off. He came back as a gelding. He's returned much improved. He came from off the pace to win 2 starts back and a 3rd level allowance at Saratoga. And then he showed a different dimension in this race, the Bernard Baruca grade 3, where Flavien Prat just blasted to the early lead. And Emirati, I think, just caught this field flat-footed. He's loose on the lead, and he stays loose.
Yeah, he just went right to the front here with nobody else really taking any initiative. And he had a big lead all the way around the track, never lets this field really get involved through the stretch. I do think this horse has improved so far this year, Dan. His first start off the layoff, he got really unlucky in the trip department and was probably best that day. He's won both of his starts since. All that being said, this is a pretty significant step up in class.
And if you're looking for a closer in this race, the number 12 set piece might be the best one, and he will take advantage of a fast pace up front. He's won 11 times, including his most recent start at Pimlico. Let's watch that race against much weaker competition, the Baltimore-Washington International Turf Cup. He was last early. That's what he does. He goes to the outside. He wins with a minimum of fuss.
Yeah, he's kind of towered over this field on form. It was just a question of whether he would show up and run his good race. He showed up, ran his good race, wins very, very easily. This is obviously a way tougher field, Dan, but he's already proven, over and over again that he can go with horses like this, especially when he catches pace in front of him, and he's going to have pace in front of him here.
13 through 16 on the also eligible list. Maybe a tone the best of the 4, Mike?
Yeah, I feel like I do think he's the best of the 4. I still think this is a tough race for him, but he's a horse who's, had a couple of pretty difficult trips recently.
What a wild race this should be. It's the grade 1 Coolmore Turf Mile. Let's take a look at our top selections on Saturday. I want Annapolis's upside. He has proven from off of the pace. I think that last race was just a good fitness builder, nothing more, nothing less. We didn't learn anything about him. Big step up in class. I think he might be up for it at a price. I have a lot of respect for your top picks on team.
Yeah, I like that pick of yours with Annapolis. I think he's really interesting at a price, and I think it's a good sign of confidence that Pletcher's even running him in this race. I put Santine on top because I like him going short, and I like his running style for this race. I put Set Piece, though, second, Dan. I think he's going to sit and make one run.
He always does, and he usually makes a very hard charge in the stretch. 7-12-9-6 for Mike, 8-7-6-9 for me. What a race. Grade 1, $1 million, Coolmore Turf Mile, a prep for the Breeders' Cup Mile. Good luck.